Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that inspires change, challenges perspectives, and empowers voices. Now let's get into it. It was a sunny Saturday morning in Westview Park, where kids of all ages flocked to skate, play ball, or just hang out. 13-year-old Malik Jenkins' Saturday ritual was simple: grab his worn-out skateboard, head to the park, and practice tricks on the ramps. His skateboard was his pride and joy, a gift from his dad on his 10th birthday. The deck was custom painted with vibrant streaks of orange and black, and Malik had named it Flash. Malik was dressed in a simple black hoodie and jeans. His kicks were scuffed from endless hours of skating, but they carried a story of determination. His skin glistened under the morning sun as he glided across the pavement, practicing an ollie he'd been trying to master all week. His laughter mixed with the rhythmic clattering of skateboard wheels, echoing through the park. As Malik landed a nearly perfect trick, he heard the sharp whine of a car's engine. Looking up, he noticed a police cruiser pulling into the parking lot. Two officers, a middle-aged man with a stocky build and a younger woman with blonde hair tied in a tight bun, stepped out. Malik didn't think much of it. Cops patrolled the park all the time. But then, their eyes locked onto him. The male officer nudged his partner, and they began walking toward Malik. The boy's stomach churned. He'd been taught by his parents to always be respectful to law enforcement, but they had also warned him that sometimes, just being a black boy in certain places could make people suspicious. "Hey, kid," the male officer called out, his voice firm and loud. Malik stopped his skateboard and looked up. "Yes, sir," he replied, his voice steady despite the tension building in his chest. The officers approached, the male one leading. "This your skateboard?" he asked, gesturing to Flash. "Yes, sir." "It's mine," Malik said, his hand gripping the edge of the board protectively. "You sure about that?" the officer asked, his tone skeptical. "We got a report about a stolen skateboard matching this description." Malik's heart sank. "No, sir. It's not stolen. My dad gave it to me." The female officer chimed in. "Do you have proof of that? A receipt or something?" Malik's eyes widened. "A receipt? No. It was a gift." The male officer stepped closer. "You mind if we take a look at it?" Reluctantly, Malik handed over his skateboard. His palms felt clammy as he watched the officer inspect it like it was contraband. The man turned it over, eyeing the paint job, the wheels, and the scratches along the edges. "This is pretty fancy for a kid like you," the officer said, his words dripping with condescension. "Where'd your dad get the money for something like this?" Malik's chest tightened. "He works hard," he said firmly. "He's a big guy. He does movies." The male officer smirked. "Movies, huh? What's his name?" "Dwayne Johnson," Malik said quietly, feeling a lump form in his throat. He knew what was coming. The officers exchanged a glance, and the female one let out a short laugh. "You're telling us your dad is The Rock? Come on." "I'm not lying," Malik said, his voice rising. He hated how desperate he sounded. "It's the truth." The male officer shook his head. "All right, we're going to hold on to this board until we can verify your story." "What? You can't take it?" Malik protested, his hands reaching for Flash. "Step back," the officer barked, his hand moving to his belt. Malik froze, his eyes welling with tears. He raised his hands slowly, just like his parents had taught him. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Kids and parents stood at a distance, watching the scene unfold. Whispers spread through the group, some murmuring about how unfair it was, others too nervous to intervene. Malik's voice trembled as he pleaded, "Please, it's mine. I didn't steal it. You can call my dad. He'll tell you." The female officer sighed. "We'll see about that." "What's his number?" Malik recited it shakily, praying they would call. They didn't. Instead, The male officer took Flash and walked back to the cruiser, leaving Malik standing there, tears streaming down his face as the crowd watched in silence. Little did the officers know, their decision was about to backfire spectacularly. Back at the station, the male officer tossed Flash onto a desk. "We'll hold on to this until we figure out if the kid's lying," he said, leaning back in his chair. His partner sighed. "Do you really think the Rock is his dad?" "Come on," the man replied with a scoff. "It's just some kid trying to get out of trouble." Just as he finished speaking, the station's phone rang. The officer on duty answered it, his face paling almost instantly. "You're going to want to take this one." The chief took the receiver. "Westview Police Department." A deep, unmistakable voice rumbled through the line. "This is Dwayne Johnson. I believe there's been a misunderstanding involving my son, Malik Jenkins, and his skateboard." The room went silent. Every officer's eyes were glued to the chief, who stammered, Mr. Johnson? We were just about to look into that." "Good," the Rock replied, his tone steady but firm. "I'm on my way." The call ended, leaving a heavy tension in the air. The male officer swallowed hard, his bravado fading. "He's coming here?" "Oh, he's coming," the chief replied, his voice low. "And you two better have a damn good explanation." Meanwhile, Malik sat on a park bench, his head in his hands. The crowd had mostly dispersed, but a few skaters stayed behind, patting him on the back and muttering words of support. A familiar black SUV roared into the parking lot, and Malik looked up. His heart skipped a beat as he saw his dad step out, his massive frame unmistakable even from a distance. The Rock's face was set in a hard expression, his jaw clenched. "Dad," Malik called, running toward him. He threw his arms around his father, who hugged him tightly before stepping back to examine his son. "You okay, buddy?" Dwayne asked, his voice softening as he looked into Malik's tear-streaked face. "They took Flash," Malik said, his voice breaking. "They said it was stolen." Dwayne's eyes darkened. "Don't worry, son. We're getting it back." Without another word, he turned toward the police station, his presence radiating authority. The sleek black SUV pulled up to the police station and parked in the visitor's lot. The building seemed to shrink in comparison to the towering figure that stepped out of the vehicle. Dwayne Johnson, dressed in a fitted black t-shirt and jeans that only emphasized his massive frame, strode toward the entrance. His face was a picture of controlled fury, his jaw set and eyes sharp as flint. Inside the station, tension crackled in the air. The male officer, who had taken Malik's skateboard, fidgeted at his desk. His partner stood nearby, her arms crossed but clearly nervous. The chief emerged from his office, adjusting his tie, trying to maintain an air of authority despite the situation. The front door swung open, and all heads turned. Dwayne Johnson filled the doorway, his imposing presence making the room feel smaller. He didn't need to say a word. His eyes scanned the room, landing on the male officer. The officer swallowed hard, his bravado crumbling. "Where's my son's skateboard?" Dwayne's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of an approaching storm. "Mr. Johnson, we were just about to," the chief began, stepping forward, but Dwayne raised a hand, silencing him. "No excuses," he said, his tone sharper now. "I don't care what you were about to do. What you did was accuse my son of stealing something that belongs to him. You humiliated him in public, made him feel small for no reason other than the color of his skin." The room was dead silent. The officers avoided his gaze, their faces pale. Dwayne took a step closer to the desk where Flash sat. He picked it up, inspecting it as if to ensure it hadn't been damaged. Then he turned to face the officers again. "You didn't even bother to call me to verify his story. Instead, you treated him like a criminal." The male officer stammered, "W didn't mean." "Save it," Dwayne snapped, his voice rising. Do you have any idea what kind of message you're sending to kids like Malik? That no matter how hard they try, they'll always be seen as suspects first. The chief stepped in, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Mr. Johnson, I assure you, this will be thoroughly investigated. It better be, Dwayne said, his voice like thunder. Because if it isn't, I'll make sure everyone hears about this. My son deserves better. All kids deserve better. He turned to Malik, who had followed him inside and was now standing by the door, watching his father with awe and gratitude. Dwayne handed him Flash. Let's go, buddy. Malik took the board, clutching it tightly. Thanks, Dad, he whispered. As they walked out, the weight of the moment lingered in the air. The Rock had made his point, but the conversation about justice and accountability was far from over. Thank you for watching this powerful story. Let's work together to stand against injustice and bring awareness to the challenges so many face every day. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, and let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Your voice matters. Let it be heard.